So recently I've been asked about how I get my clips out so fast when I'm shooting live content. So I wanted to give you guys a look at my process in case there's anybody out there trying to speed up their in-game production. First off, when I say live content, I mean that I'm most likely filming some event that the company wants me to send them a marquee moment or a huge moment that's happening during the event. It's not necessarily you film it today and then you take it home and you edit it and you get it back to them in so many hours. Like, no, they want the content first quarter, third quarter, end of the event. They want content all the way throughout. So live content is really you're shooting something and then you're getting it to the company that hired you in the moment. So you need it to be really fast. I've shot live content for the NFL, the NHL, the Throne National Championship, the Battle, and tons of other organizations. But pretty much my process between all these organizations, no matter what level, is the same. So although getting a good look at the shot helps, obviously, because when it's on the timeline or when it's on the feed and people see it and they're like, oh my God, this is the greatest look at this highlight. Like, you have the perfect angle of the ball coming right at you. The person dives into the end zone. They get up and scream right at your camera. Like, yeah, that's going to hit on social, obviously, but getting that speed matters a lot, because once a person shares one look at the play, they're a lot less likely to share that same look at the play again, or even the same play again in general, unless again you have that crazy look. First off, gear. If you want to get those clips out super fast, you have to have gear that'll be able to handle that speed. I usually shoot at 4K and 120 frames per second because I want to have the ability to slow it down if I want to later on in like another post-editing process, or even the same day. I might want to put a speed ramp on a clip because, again, when you see it on your social timeline, you might see that slow motion and it might make you say to yourself, oh, this angle is crazy. Like, this is different from game broadcast. This is different from this other profile that posted this. Like, this speed ramp makes it different. Seeing the person dunk and then scream in slow motion, now I want to repost that. So I do shoot at 4K 120 frames per second, which the clips aren't super big because they're only 10-20 seconds long, but they are a lot bigger than your normal 1080 files or your normal 60 frames per second files or even 24 frames per second files. So you need to have gear that can keep up with those big files and allow you to upload and edit fast. I use a Sony Tough card, 80 gigabyte card, like way too expensive. They come with a card reader too that you have to buy on top of that. And I also use a SanDisk SSD. Hard drives, if you got them, you got them. Solid state drives obviously are a lot faster, so if you can spend up and get one of those, you should definitely get one. If you trim and delete the bad stuff that you won't ever need, you can kind of make them last longer. I try to make my solid state drives last a year, and I get 4 TBs on them. So I mean, as I'm shooting more and more and as I'm shooting more 4K, I do find myself kind of going through that space faster, but I definitely prefer the solid state drives over the hard drives because, again, I need to be able to edit these files super fast, export them super fast, and send them off super fast. And between those two things, I can either edit off the hard drive, or sometimes if it's just a few clips, I can edit right off the memory card, or I can upload from the memory card to the hard drive pretty quickly. I can get about 20 gigs onto the hard drive maybe under a minute, so it's pretty solid. Next, after the gear, I have my marking system. Now, marking clips is super easy to do. It's just stopping your camera the next time you start your camera. It's some type of signal. It could be a hand, it could be the ceiling, it could be the floor. It's just something to help you identify the clips as icons. So the first time I had to deal with this, I was filming for the Battle. They host high-level AAU tournaments. I was in New York, and one of the teams they were hosting was Bronny's team. It was SFG. They had a bunch of other teams there too, but he was obviously the most notable name at the tournament. But basically what I had to do was film all these games. They were about an hour long, all on one court, and then I had to get the content to the team that was posting right after the game, if not during the game. So you would have your big plays like your dunks, your crossovers, your and one layups and crazy flexes. Those ones you had to get to the team right away. So as soon as that happened, I'm marking my clip, walking over to the computer, editing it up, and then sending it to social, then going back to filming. Also, after the game, I would have to send a recap of whoever the best player was or whoever had the best game. Now, mind you, there's 16 teams in this tournament. I don't necessarily know who all these kids are. There's probably less teams than that, but I don't know who all these kids are. I don't know who the best player is. I don't know who's going to have the best day, even if I know who the best player is. The best player isn't always guaranteed to go off for 30 every single game, right? So what I'm supposed to do at the end of the game is be able to send player highlights. So if Johnny had 30 points or if he had 15 and he led the team, they need his buckets in a quick video to put on social. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, just a regular edit of these plays together, but it has to be his buckets all together so they can highlight or they can show off that he had a really good game. What I would do is I would film every single play. I would cut the camera off after each play. So if the ball went out of bounds or a basket was made or a turnover or a dead ball, I stopped the clip. I stopped recording, right? Now, if there was a big play, could be a 3-pointer with a flex, or it could be an and one layup, it could be a dunk, a crossover, just something that you would see on social and probably share, I would cut after that play finished, and the next clip would be me holding up my hand right in front of the lens. Now, I look goofy while I'm in front of all these people just like this in front of my lens, but what that does is when I run to my computer, when I import or I even open the memory card folder, I view all of my clips as icons. When I'm looking at all my clips as icons, I can easily see this one random clip of me just holding up my hand. I'm only recording it for maybe 1 or 2 seconds. I can see this clip of me holding up my hand, and I know that the clip before that clip was probably a good play. It was probably a good angle on a good play. This way, when I'm looking at 100 clips named C13, C14, C15, C16, I can look at these 100 clips that I filmed throughout the whole game, and I can easily pick out 3 or 4 that were marked by my hand, and I can throw those right into the timeline, edit them, send them off to social, they're up fast. I don't have to scrub through 100 plays, say, oh, number 2 did score here, number 2 didn't score here, number 2, like that would take forever. But the next game would be over by the time I did that. So I had to quickly learn, how am I gonna figure out where my clips even are? And I started marking them. Now, how do you get around identifying single players or teams? Because again, at this tournament that I was doing, I didn't know who these players were. I didn't know who was gonna go off. So I might have been able to identify a single dunk or a single crossover, but the player who did that play might have only had 6 points in the game. And obviously they're not gonna win the MVP that way. So how do I identify these players as MVP players? In that case, you kind of just switch up your marking system. So a couple weeks ago, I actually had to do this for an organization called Rochester Keepers. They hosted this event called the Battle for New York, where they hosted 6 teams from across New York. They brought all these teams together and they played on 2 courts at once. It was kind of like a round robin tournament, and the last team standing won. Now again, I don't know who any of these kids are. Some of the kids from Buffalo, I knew who they were because I've already seen them play. Some of the kids from Rochester, I knew who they were because I've already seen them play. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I could just identify them easily or I knew how to mark their clips. So in this case, all I did was hold up different numbers on my hand. So 1 was Rochester, 2 was Buffalo, 3 was Finger Lakes, 4 was Syracuse, 5 was Albany, and then fist was Southern Tier, because obviously I can only hold one hand up in the camera at a time. So if I ever was recording or bouncing between the courts and I was at a different team each time, and one team had a crazy highlight, and then the next play I bounced to the other court and another team had a crazy highlight, all I would do is hold up these different numbers on my hand to identify which team it was. So now when I'm scrubbing through 100 clips again, and I need to pull clips specifically from Rochester, all I do is look for all the marks of me holding up a 1. Pick out 5 of those, I have a Rochester reel. Now in this case, how do I pick out the top plays out of each team? If you have 10 1s, 3 3s, and 4 5s, how are you gonna see that dunk? How are you gonna find the crazy dunk that's gonna go crazy on social right now? In that case, you just double or triple mark. So this clip right here, where I had a couple 1s up and then I had covered the camera, I can assume by looking at all these clips that that clip was probably the main highlight of the day. So after it happened, all I did was start, hold up a 1, stop, start again, hold up a 1, stop, and then cover the lens with another 1. This way, when I'm scrubbing through all these icons and I see all these 1s, I see all these 3s, all these 5s, I can see, oh, this one has 3 1s in a row, or this one has a 1 and then a black screen, so something must be really, really good here. And I can find it like that. I can edit that up, send it off to social, or send it off to the posting team, and they get it up, and boom, live content. So that's pretty much how I mark my clips on game days and get them out super fast. If you guys have any other questions about the process or the gear or whatever, just let me know and I'll try to make a video on it. Peace.